Good evening and welcome to First Issues. Tonight we delve into a system in which some expatriates and foreigners are being made to part with thousands and at times tens of thousands of Pula to facilitate what should be a simple and inexpensive process of applying for a work or residence permit in Botswana. What factors have allowed for this system or culture to take root? Why would an international business figure feel the need to entrust a simple procedure to an inexperienced and at times less educated stranger? Have these consultants created the impression that a successful application now depends on who you know? Some instances are tantamount to extortion, where some of these consultants illegally keep their clients' sensitive and personal documents, such as passports, until they have been paid a fee of their choice. This process is one of the first points of interaction potential investors and businessmen have with our country, and therefore it has the potential to create a dubious first impression as to how things operate within our borders. We sit down with the CEO of the Botswana Confederation of Commerce, Industry and Manpower, Maria Machilo Ellis, looking to find out, amongst other things, who these people advertising their permit application services are and what could be driving them. Are these consultants members of a syndicate, or are they just Botswana taking advantage of government bureaucracy and ineffectiveness?
I think it's normal that what we call entrepreneurship, it's a situation where business people or normal people identify an opportunity in the market. And I would imagine that these consultants, they have seen that opportunity, that there are quite a lot of people who are not able to successfully or efficiently complete the application forms for work and residence permit, and they came in to fill in that gap. But I must hasten to say that look at our current systems in the country. When you go to, for instance, for licensing, when you go to pay taxes, these are services that you'll find a lot of time people don't go there personally. They always get an intermediary person to do them. It is simply because the processes don't lend themselves to be so fast and quick. So a business person will rather save time and get on with something else and leave the hassle to a consultant to do that work. So I believe that if our processes were much quicker, were much easier, there would not be an opportunity for consultants to come in there.
So it's less about the complexity and more about the time these processes consume.
Absolutely. Because when you look at an application form, the questions that it asks are questions that the applicant is the one who has to provide that information, not the consultant. It's quite different from if you were doing a business plan. A business plan requires that you have an expert, like an accountant, who can do cash flows, who can do projections. That's a specialized sort of profession that an ordinary person would not have, and therefore requires that external person to do it for you. Whereas the work and residence permit, let me even say, even the company registration forms, they are basic and straightforward. But it is those people who have done it several times, who also are used to the processes that we apply at the moment in our country, who have actually seen this opportunity and are assisting people with the process.
Do you have an idea of who these consultants are and where they come from?
Obviously, these consultants are Botswana, most of them, because they have actually worked in Botswana for a long time. They know the regulations. They know the amount of time that it would take to actually go through that process. So they have an experience in that area. And a lot of them, you'll find them, as you say, having advertised themselves, or they are running companies that are not just doing work and residence permits, are also probably doing company registration, company secretarial work, and they offer that as an extra service.
Is this a situation we see in the cities like Gaborone or Francistown, or is it a national problem?
You realize that in areas where there are a number of business people or a number of businesses, you will find people using this opportunity to actually assist people. So Gaborone, there's quite a lot of this happening. Francistown, there's quite a lot of this happening. But I would say a lot of time you'll find that in Gaborone, because of the amount of business that is being done in Gaborone, invariably you will find a lot of people who are offering this service.
Next, we hear our guests' views on the impression that the difficulty with which to get a work or residence permit could be creating about our country.
Let me first say that there's nothing wrong with providing a service. I think, as I mentioned earlier, in every aspect of business, entrepreneurs will identify an opportunity. So there's absolutely nothing wrong. But the problem is that even when you have these consultants doing the work, the process is not quicker. It is not more efficient. So it begs the question, what is wrong with our system? When you look at our competitiveness ratings by the World Bank, the three topmost areas where we fall short as a country is lack of skilled workers, it is work ethic, and government bureaucracy. And bureaucracy manifests itself in red tape, in processes that have to happen, even for a small thing. And therefore, as I said, these consultants have seen this as an opportunity, and they are simply offering a service to say, I'll save you time. Instead of standing in a queue or going to immigration 3-4 times, I'm happy to do that. And you are right to say, what impression is it giving as a country? I would say if the system was actually more effective, there's absolutely nothing wrong. But we have seen our processes becoming more and more bureaucratic. Because at the moment, the work and residence permit has now included an extra process, which is security clearance. It has just added to the processes and the delay. And this is absolutely a cry from the business community, because we are saying, yes, we are concerned about the security of our country, but we are also concerned about the level of foreign investment that we are bringing in here. So let's try to have a balance. Not lose sight of the need to bring in credible people in the country, but at the same time, those that are coming in and we want, let them come. Let's not bar them away through our bureaucratic processes.
How big a deterrent would you think this could be to a potential investor?
Absolutely, it's a big deterrent. When you combine the two aspects, lack of skilled workers and government bureaucracy, they actually put a lot of pressure on a potential business. Because one, you are coming here as an investor, you do not readily find the type of skilled workers that you want, and your next resort is to actually look outside where you can get this technical expertise. And in the process of doing that, you are met with this sort of barrier where it is not so easy to actually bring in those skills. I must hasten to say that, as Bokim, we promote so much localization. We are saying, first to look at what is available locally before you can look outside. But we are also very clear that there are certain traits that are not readily available in this country. And invariably, you would expect an investor to go outside and look for for those sort of skills. And we are advocating for our country to be open and allow expertise from outside, because this expertise will transfer skills to our locals, that in a few years to come we may not necessarily need to import those skills because we have developed them through transfer of skills.
What best practices could we learn from other countries who have learned to make their processes more effective?
That removing bureaucracy is not going to get the sky to fall. Somehow we seem to see that government is so terrified that if they remove one layer of law, the whole sky is going to collapse on us. There are countries who have removed quite an array of legislations, and instead of them collapsing, they have moved ahead. Georgia, for instance, is one of the countries that I know as Botswana we are learning from. They have taken a bold step to remove the issue of agencies when you come to border clearances. You don't need an agent to clear your goods through the border, because that was a bureaucracy that was hampering cross-border trade. But the Prime Minister, the ex-Prime Minister, when he said that, you know, when I decided to do that, I also brought in an incentive to the government workers so that they can be paid more and better for that service, so that they offer it more efficiently. And lo and behold, Georgia is one of the top countries when it comes to doing business, because they have taken those bold decisions. I think as a country, we have seen the political will. His Excellency has set up a very high-level committee which deals directly with doing business. But we are not seeing the results coming out as one would expect. It is because of the reluctance to let go of some of the things. It's the reluctance to let the private sector self-regulate itself. The reluctance to allow people to mature and make sure that when they do the mistake, then you make them an example, instead of crucifying them before they do the mistake. Because in that way we are chasing people away.
Is it just legislation that is hampering the efficiencies, or which other measures could be taken to make us more efficient when it comes to processing work and residence permits?
Legislation, yes, has been seen as a big impediment, mainly because the process of amending legislation in our country has still lagged behind. There are a lot of laws that are waiting to go through Parliament, and that has actually kept a lot of things in the queue and still to happen. But it is not just legislation. Even when legislation is there, it is the process re-engineering that we need to do as a country, but also the attitude of those who are implementing the law first. Because we shouldn't have an attitude of, I want to punish you first. Instead of saying, I want you to come to Botswana, I want you to do business, but I want you to observe these laws. We find often, with all good intentions, the implementers of the law seem to be scaring the people or not being flexible on simple issues. And we are saying that I think it is the way that we administer these legislations that we need to look at in order to facilitate a process that is pro-business and that will actually encourage business people to venture into business, rather than them say, now I can register of companies. They shouldn't look at it that way. They should actually look forward to actually being part of this process, because it's actually very fast to do it.
So until these reformations are made, the consultants are just capitalizing on problem solving, it appears.
Of course, if I was in that business, I also capitalize on it. I mean, you can't blame the people. But I think at the end of the day, we should realize that these consultants could be doing other work that gives them more money if the processes in this particular area were made easier and people found it easier to do it themselves. we will see these consultants adding value to these businesses, like for instance assisting companies to implement their localization plans, because that is our major objective as a country, to see that more and more locals are actually entrenched into the systems. I would like to see a situation where our labor consultants are more involved with assisting companies to meet these targets and to implement them, rather than spending time at the immigration office just to go and check how far the application form is. I think we can use that time better.
If you look at the people that live in London, 30% of them were born and bred in London. 30% came from other parts of the UK to change their fortune. Vitally, 30% are like me. We were born elsewhere and we came to London to change our fortunes. You mix that all up, we've got the most cosmopolitan society on the planet. And what diversity really means, diversity isn't the blunt instruments of race, religion, gender. I think diversity is diversity of background, diversity of experience. So if 10 of us come from 10 different places and have worked in 10 different industries, we look at one problem differently. Those 10 heads who have worked in different places will look at that same problem with many different eyes and come up with many different solutions. That gives the boss a huge choice on how to attack that problem. If we all come from the same place, same education, same background, we'll look at it with the same eyes and find the same solution. This is Africa's problem. I think we've got to be brave enough to let people in who don't look like us, worship like us, or think like us. They help us get a richer solution. If we're all the same, we'll continue to think the same.
What is Bokim's position on Botswana opening its borders wider to foreigners?
It's a pity that we didn't get our guest speaker to speak at our last AGM. We had a theme which said tapping into the international talent, meaning that for business in Botswana to thrive, we need to tap into the talent that is sitting out there. We advocate for flow of talent into the country that is bringing people in here to assist us. Obviously, we are not saying all and sundry should be allowed into the country. We are saying let us allow talent that is going to add value to this country. We are a part of the SADC system that has called for Univisa within the region, because at the moment we are all advocating for regional integration and for trading within the region. And we are saying that you cannot expect the goods to move around the region with people behind. How are those goods going to move? Secondly, exports is not only in trade in goods, it's also in trade in services. And often these services are offered by people. So the more as a region we open up our borders to allow the flow of people, the more we are going to benefit from the trade in services. As we speak now, the tripartite region, which is COMESA, East African Community and SADC, they are talking about opening up the region for free movement of people within the region. I know it's a tough call for governments because there's the sovereignty that has to be protected. There's the security that has to, first of all, be taken care of. But the most important and critical thing is the need to balance that with the growth that SADC as a region is calling for improving the lives of the citizens of this region. We will only improve that if we allow cross-border trade, cross-border movement of people. And as Bokim, we are very much behind this regional objective. But at the same time, we are very much behind the idea of citizen economic empowerment, very much behind developing our citizens so that as these foreigners come in, we don't see our children sitting there and watching as people are working. We want to work together with these people for the benefit of the country.
Re a la amogela gape mo lenaneong la First Issues. Mo karolong e re kopile Rre Dumisani Ntini wa Botswana Stock Exchange gore nankolela le gore tlhalosetsa ka dintlha dingwe tsa mebaraka. Dumela Rre Ntini.
Dumela Nametso, thank you for having me.
Ha re bua ka mebaraka, re bua ka reng?
tota mpe ke simolole ka go bua ka Botswana Stock Exchange ka boyone. Botswana Stock Exchange ke mmaraka wa peeletso re leka go ka ha Batswana tshono ya khumo. Jan mo mmarakeng wo go a diabe kana di shares di a rekisiwa bo di tla di rekiwa gape.
Di shares kgotsa diabe tsone ke eng tsone tse di rekiwang jana mo mebarekeng?
Diabe kana di shares ke mo go teng part ownership ya company kore ha ke rekile diabe ke nna a shareholder kana monga company, therefore ke kgona go bona dipoelo in two ways. Santlha di dividends mo eleng gore re go bitsa morokotso, and secondly capital gains re ra koketsego ya tlhwatlhwa ya seabe sa company.
Gantsi re na le go utlwa wena gone mo First Issues o bua ka bo DCI, FCI tseo di theme e be di rai.
Tota DCI, Domestic Companies Index ke sekale, therefore jaaka re itse mo Botswana go na le dikompone tse eleng gore di rekisetsa Batswana diabe mme bile e le dikompone tsa mo Botswana di direla gone mo Botswana mo, therefore re tle re mo sekgweng ha so setswa mo gae kana mo ntlung kana mo lapeng, it's domestic, therefore ke tsone di domestic companies. Domestic Companies Index jaanong ke sekale se eleng gore se supa koketsego kana phokotsego ya tshoboko ya boleng jwa dikompone tsa mo gae, domestic companies. Jaanong Foreign Companies Index yone jaaka le itse go na le dikompone tse eleng gore di a bo di kwadisitswe kana di registerilwe ko ntle ga Botswana ko bo South Africa bo Australia mme bo di tla di rekisetsa Batswana diabe mo Botswana Stock Exchange, tseo ke tsone the foreign companies, and therefore Foreign Companies Index ke sekale se eleng gore se supa kgolo kana kwelo tlase ya tshoboko ya boleng jwa dikompone tsa kontle.
Re na gape le go utlwa go ntse go te total turnover.
Yes.
Ha go biwa ka total turnover go ra eng gone mo performanceng ya bo DCI le bo FCI?
Total turnover is simply madi otlhe a eleng gore a dirilwe ke theko le thekiso ya diabe mo mmarakeng a ke mo bekeng kana mo ngwageng. So se re sirang ke gore we multiply palo ya tsone diabe tse eleng gore di rekisitswe le price tsa tsone go ka goroga kono moreng eo ya total turnover.
Re leboga baeng ba rona phirimaneng eno le wena mmogedi kwa gae. Ke le Nametso Sebina mmogo le badiri ka nna le barotletsi ba rona e bong First National Bank ra re a nne boroko.